Davidson has a really impressive story and really awesome transformation in the last year. And
I always struggled with ADHD. It impacted my marriage, my income, me staying at jobs for not a long time, my own personal, like how hard I was being on myself. In my mind, I was just like all over the place type of dude. Like that was part of my identity. Me being late for meetings, me overbooking my calendar, and then I would get in trouble, or me not showing up to calls because I didn't have an organizational system.
Most people with ADHD have more significant amount of negative feedback. It's a lifelong steady stream of negative feedback cues. Hearing that since childhood over and over and over in so many areas makes us start questioning everything.
So you help me define what my system is. I'm learning from speaking with you and being part of the community that folks that have ADHD are even more critical of themselves. Just hearing that and like validating that, it's like, oh, okay, like this is actually part of the process. I had to lead with curiosity.
And now you cleared up most of that debt and you've dramatically increased your salary and things are going well. Hello, welcome back. We are now talking to Davidson Hang, one of my clients, friends, and just an all-around awesome guy. So today we're going to be talking about, ADHD struggles in business, where you can find some strategies. By the end of this, you're going to hear about specific things that are working, how Davidson's been able to dramatically increase his performance, some of the struggles we deal with, and what you can do about them. So Davidson has a really impressive story and really awesome transformation in the last year, and love to hear about it. And then hopefully it gives other people. So, don't hold back and give us the goods. So yeah, why don't you introduce yourself and what you're doing lately, and then we'll jump into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian. It's been exactly a year since we've worked together. So kind of crazy to think that. Well, I think exactly a year since we had our first conversation. So almost a year, right? Because we started working. Yeah. So it's a nice reflection point as well. So I'm currently the head of business development at Untap Your Sales Potential. We're like a $5.5 million business. Right now I'm pacing towards 7.8 million. I'm one of the first employees. So my job requires a lot of focus and a lot of effort because I'm literally calling. I'm fortunate that we get anywhere from 50 to 300 leads a month. So I'm the person that's dialing all of them and enrolling them and getting them to spend anywhere from $3,000 to $48,000 a year with us to work on habits, mindset, and sales training for software sellers.
It sounds like things are going really well. It's awesome. I know a lot of this. And, talk to us about the ADHD side of things. So I think one of the things I'm doing with my business and what has been very well received is, and Ian Koniak, who you work with, talks about it a lot as well, like bringing attention to the ADHD struggles. A lot of us are high performing, very successful in many ways. And that doesn't change the fact that we're still having a lot of these struggles and challenges. And it feels like, there's something wrong, we're broken, we can't figure it out. It's very frustrating. And not a lot of people in business that are successful are talking about it recently more and more, right? So tell us a bit about your background. Have you always been someone with ADHD? Was this a new discovery? What made you look into it in the first place? Tell us a bit about the backstory.
Yeah. This is super interesting because now I'm curious to hear other people's ADHD folks that you interview and kind of their struggles with it. I found out when I was in college that I had ADHD because I was about to fail out of college, and I think I was just able to.
I was failing out.
Similar, yeah. That's actually why I joined, because when I heard your story, I was like, dude, totally can relate. Everything he's saying, I'm nodding my head like a man, my neck was hurting afterwards because I was nodding so much. But I think I was smart enough to get through middle school and elementary school and high school but not really studying because I had some level of intelligence. And then once I was pre-med, I was like, oh, okay, this actually requires actual work. And that's when I realized it. And when I went to the student center, they're like, damn, you have really bad ADHD, because they make you take this assessment. And then so I started taking Adderall, and I didn't like the way Adderall made me feel. I think I felt a little bit slower, a little bit more lethargic. But every time I did take it, my productivity when it came to administrative stuff or anything that was monotonous became way higher. I always struggled with ADHD, and I would say it impacted my marriage, my income, me staying at jobs for not a long time, and my own personal, like how hard I was being on myself. Cause I'd be like, why do other people are different? Like I always felt like I was different from everyone.
So you said you discovered it in college. What were you doing in like throughout your 20s? Were you treating it? Were you just on medicine? Did you not think about it?
Arguably, I think the 20s was like the hardest time in my life in terms of I wasn't really taking it as much because in school I had to take it because I was like, all right, like I have to figure out how to study. And it forced me to like actually buckle down and study. And then like at the time from 20 to 30, I didn't have the self-awareness. In my mind, I was just like, I'm just like a all over the place type of dude. Like that was part of my identity. And I didn't really realize, or I didn't have the self-awareness to realize like it was actually impacting so many aspects of my life. Like me being late for meetings, me overbooking my calendar, and then I would get in trouble, or me not showing up to calls because I didn't have an organizational system.
Yeah. So one thing you mentioned that I just wanted to like call out, which is something that came up for me when I was going through this, was you said I was just all over the place kind of guy. It was just part of my identity, right? Tell me more
Yeah.
about that.
I think the beauty in being in the your community, like the accountable community, was like, oh, okay, a lot of people feel this way. I don't realize this is. I always assume I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just like this unique butterfly or flower that. But then just hearing other people sharing, and I think just being heard is like amazing, right? Because when you feel heard, you're like, oh, okay, like I guess I'm not the screw up. If I'm being honest, I was able to overcompensate by being like charismatic or being charming or being likable. Like, yeah, maybe proficiency and like productivity wise, I wasn't like producing in certain jobs, but because people just really liked me because I was friendly, I was like a super connector, I was able to get by and still got promoted and still had like a somewhat successful career.
Right. So that's like the background. There was this, persistent, it was ongoing. It was part of your DNA, part of your identity, which I think a lot of us don't really recognize until we step away and say, well, these patterns, these habits have become part of who I am. I'm just a scattered person. I'm just, erratic. I'm disorganized, right? It's so ingrained. So bring me to what impact did that have on your career? Was, because I think you mentioned you would switch jobs a lot. Like what else
Yeah.
was happening until the last year or so?
Yeah, I still had success, and this was on and off ADHD medicine. Like, objectively speaking, I still was like a high achiever, right? Like, got into good companies, worked at LinkedIn, beat out 130 other people interviewing for the role to land there. I had good success. But it was interesting because every time I was about to get promoted, or every time I would, end the quarter at like one of the top reps, I would get this like antsy feeling. And then I would just literally leave like right after I won Employee of the Month, or after they were like, oh, if you keep this up, you'll get promoted to director level.
Well, let me pause you there because what you're touching on is one of the like unspoken things that keeps coming up and that people don't really understand is there's so much out there about ADHD that's like the memes and the forgetfulness and the carelessness, and the jokes. And, we can both have some of these difficulties and also be very successful. And one of the things you're touching on is how it can impact people with success. You achieve something. I was just had someone in a group today talking about this. You achieve something and then you've lost the interest in it. So it can be equally damaging that you then switch right when things are good, right? And that's what you're saying, right? I got to a point where things were going good and then I got bored and switched. And then eventually had to start over somewhere, right?
Yeah, spot on, right? Like objectively, like if I like any normal person that doesn't have ADHD, like people that aren't neurodivergent would be like, wait a second. So you're telling me that you won Employee of the Month and you would quit like the week after? Like that doesn't make any sense, right? Like that means you spent all this time building this brand equity. You did valuable work, right? And so I didn't have the self-awareness at the time, right? I think been coaching one-on-one with you, like we're unpacking a lot of these layers. But at the time, I was just like living very spontaneously and very compulsive
Impulsively?
slash, I would say both, like some compulsive behaviors and some impulsive behaviors as well.
So what brought you into my universe? Like when we first met, what were some of the things other people may hear and say, oh yeah, that's me? Or what are the things that were, kept coming up, the patterns, things that you kept noticing?
Yeah, I think you helped me see that like on paper, I like life was good, right? Objectively, if I just look at the data, which as a person with ADHD, I guess I had an identity that, oh, I'm not a data person, right? So even that's another layer that maybe we could unpack at some point, but surface level, like my life looked great, right? Like publish a bunch of books, have a podcast, have a pretty large social media following. But in talking with you, I realized that my internal, how I see myself was like completely different than any sort of data points. Like my self identity was like scatterbrain all over the place, late to meetings every day, bad husband, doesn't remember important things. So like that was my identity. But then in every month, as we unpacked more and more together, it was like, actually, you're doing well. You're actually making good money. And better yet, like what everyone is saying, leadership is saying like you're important. But I wasn't able to hear that because I was like in my head and I was just scattered everywhere. So I didn't take the time to reflect and be able to like think about it like more objectively.
So a lot of that's an internal dialogue and a feeling, right? But what did that end up creating tangibly?
It even at a great company like what I'm doing now, that like 6 years ago I would have been like pinching myself like, oh my God, I'm getting paid to go to these amazing retreats where I get to network with some of the most successful sales reps. Like that sounds awesome. Sign me up here. So even though that's my reality, there are times that I would get antsy, right? And because we have this safe space to talk through some of these things, you're able to like ground me and bring me back to reality and look at the facts, which I tend to ignore sometimes because I'm more of like a feelings based person naturally. So you're able to help. So it was impacting me being present at work and me just being grateful and just like actually appreciating like what I have in front of me. Like sometimes it's that simple.
When we met, I think you were pretty new into the role, or maybe 6 months or something. So
Yeah.
what was it that caught your attention, or what made you say, oh, I want to get some help with this ADHD stuff?
It was the curiosity that, oh, this guy like hired all the psycho insert whatever, right? All the types of therapists and all the psychologists and psychiatrists. Like it seemed like, okay, if I want to not have to spend as much time and energy reading the books, listening to like the research, like why don't I just reach out to this guy and see how we could work together and learn some of the things that he's done, because I'm struggling with very much like 90% of what you said resonated.
Talk to me a bit about, like, I think for people hearing this, a lot of your stories we don't always hear, because in business, people try to, mask and sugarcoat it and everything's great. People that hear this and, well, that sounds like me, or that sounds exactly like me. Like, let's talk about a bit about what has changed or what has been working, what it's taken for you to make some of those shifts.
Yeah. I mean, the results have been pretty good, like making more money, getting paid to do things that I never thought I would get paid to do. And ultimately, I think the biggest shift is confidence, just being confident. I think the communities help. So I think there's three parts to it. I think community wise, it's nice to just meet good people and then have a safe space to like talk some of these things out. So when we do like the weekly Monday calls with the community, for instance, it's nice to just slow down and reflect like, okay, like what went well last week? Because it's easy for me to talk about what didn't go well, right? That's like my natural state.
Yeah, that comes real easy for us. Yeah.
Yeah, so that I didn't need like necessarily like coaching around that as much. Although we do get into that, it does feel like 80% of the value is like slowing down and being like, oh wow, that was a really productive week. And
so what I'm hearing is like the weekly reflection has helped you maybe become more aware, more tuned in to some of the things that are working. And that has had a impact on your confidence. And then it becomes like a flywheel. A few minutes ago, you were talking about, a lack of confidence, or that would then impact your performance. You'd be questioning second guess. So it's all interconnected. And you're saying that weekly routine was helpful in bringing more attention to the stuff that is working, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and just having like you have some of these cool AI tools too. Like when we did our like year-end review or our quarterly reviews, it was nice to have extra tools to like analyze, okay, how can I take like a data-driven approach to it? And I do think you're also more system thinking like naturally compared to I would say like I'm usually pretty good at the empathy, like self-awareness, like journaling, but you take a more data-driven approach, which has helped me be able to objectively look at how am I doing and not from a place of, oh, I think I'm doing this way, but okay, if we look at the facts, like you're improving, you're making more money. It's like so many things are going well. And I typically am more focused on like what went wrong instead of like what went well.
Yeah. So if I'm summarizing for whoever watches this, so people can get value in action items like takeaways, the first thing you mentioned is bringing more attention to the things that are working and just noticing it and having that weekly routine to pause and reflect and not look at everything you want to fix, but look at like, well, what's actually going well first, right? So that's something anyone can do anytime, sit down and take stock. And then the second thing you're pointing out is focusing on data. And you said earlier that you're somebody who's like, oh, I don't do well with data or I don't like data, right? That was like a identity or part of, so has that changed or you just got over it or like talk to me about that now because a lot of people we get stuck where like, yeah, I'm nice to say that I should look at the data, but I've never been able to do that well, right? Like how does somebody approach that?
I do think I mean, it's hard to quantify, but let's just say maybe I'm like 28% more data driven ever since I've started working with you.
Well, therein is the answer. You're 28%.
Yeah, like I'm using it more. I wouldn't say I'm like completely different where it's like, oh, I'm like super data driven now, but I empower it in a way that's helpful for me. And I think more importantly, I have more peace of mind and I'm less critical with myself, which I think humans in general are very critical, but I do think I'm learning from speaking with you and being part of the community that folks that have ADHD are even more critical of themselves compared to the average person. Just hearing that and like validating that, it's like, oh, okay, like this is actually like part of the process. And sometimes it's good, right? It's led for me to make good money, have some pretty awesome opportunities, like stuff like that. But too much of anything could be debilitating. So I think when I reached out to you, even though I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to afford this. And then I found out like, oh, actually, this is pretty reasonable price compared to some of the communities that I've been a part of, like Tony Robbins and Landmark and all these other communities, like sometimes can be quite expensive. So I thought it was reasonable. It's just nice to have an objective, like some of the stuff we talk about, I wouldn't say it's like rocket science. Like, I mean, some of it is science, like you clearly have done the science, but some of it is like really the fundamentals, but it's just saying it out loud and having someone to process it with. It helps me be able to like just appreciate what I have, be more present and less anxiety and less focus on the future. And just trusting my process, my process and my systems more.
You talked a bit about data and systems and things that maybe historically you did not navigate towards as much. I remember the other thing I wanted to talk about. I'll tell you in a sec. So tell me a bit about how you are creating systems for yourself or using data in a way that you maybe didn't before and what that is resulting or producing, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously you're really big into AI. I'm not going to give you 100% of the credit that because of you, I use AI like even more, but safe to say that you definitely have modeled a lot of the efficiencies and the analytics / the big picture analysis and the pattern recognitions of using data. So that helps me personally, whether it's like, hey, if I focus on these high value prospects, there's going to be a much higher conversion rate, right? In terms of the deals are going to be much higher. So that means more revenue will come in. And then in general, I think with AI, I probably am over reliant on AI now, I would say, where I'm noticing my critical thinking skills aren't because I default to AI for everything now. So I think that's something to disclaimer, like, hey, don't overdo the AI stuff. But in general, I would say you've helped me be able to like look at my own systems. And well, first, I didn't even know I had a system, right? We all have systems, but I had a disempowering context or a narrative slash story that, oh, I don't even have a system. So you helped me define what my system
Well,
is.
so that's what I was going to talk about earlier. What you're doing there is like the self criticism or the judgment or like focusing on what we're not doing and saying like we minimize our efforts. We say, oh, well, I'm not really doing that, or I didn't do it well, or I'm not. And, that's something that I was thinking about is ingrained in us since we're young, because most people with ADHD have a much more significant amount of negative feedback. And I know there's some science on this as a child, that a child with ADHD, or even more so a female with ADHD, gets as a kid compared to others. It's a lifelong steady stream of negative feedback cues. Oh, you're late. Oh, you forgot that. Oh, you didn't do that. Oh, you missed that. Oh, that was wrong. Like hearing that since childhood over and over and over in so many areas makes us start questioning everything or over analyzing everything, because we're like so scared to make a mistake or forget something, and then it becomes a loop. So I just wanted to touch on the fact that these little things you're mentioning are often like bigger, deep-seated things for a lot of us. So not to brush over.
That's pretty deep. Yeah. It's like, I think schools are created for people that can like sit still and pay attention, right? Like even how the classroom setting is set up is like, I was the type of kid that I would always get up, like even in college, I would get up like 8 times, like get a drink of water, go to the vending
I remember
machine.
being in the hall in like 4th grade all the time.
Yeah. Basically, I like did everything I can to not sit still in a seat for an hour. And like you said, there's a lot of psychological like damage from how many professors called me the problem child, or, would just be like, dude, like Davidson, can you sit still? Like had nicknames for me, whatever. Right. So it's like your whole life you grow up thinking like, what's wrong with me? So you just assume like, oh, okay, I guess this is just something's wrong with me. And then you meet like hundreds of other people like in your community that literally struggle with the same thing. And you're like, oh, okay. Like maybe we're not effed up in the head. Maybe we're just different, So that's super helpful.
And I think it was a big turning point for me when I just started first recognizing that this even was the case, right? When I was 38 and going through a lot of stuff, I was just confused. What's wrong with me? Am I broken? Why do I keep having these patterns? I feel like I'm incredible. One day I'm the smartest person in the room and so talented, and I'm doing things that people are commending and I'm like objectively achieving. And then the next day I am totally lost and clueless and everything's collapsing around me. And I'm like, am I delusional when I think I'm smart, or am I, what am I missing? Right. And it wasn't until the ADHD thing started explaining everything. It's like, oh, with ADHD, time blindness, now and not now. And one by one, it all started unraveling. So, well, we're going to wrap up kind of soon, but take a second and tell me, out of everything we've talked about, what has, you're talking to somebody who's like you 5 years ago, 6 years ago, like people with ADHD who are not, you've been on medicine, you've now met with, worked with a coach and done the stuff, and you're seeing a lot of results and you're transforming in a lot of ways. You're killing it at your job, getting promoted, making tons of money. What are some of the key insights? We talked about some, right? One was taking time on Monday to look at the week, right? Another one was, slowing down and, being more data driven, right? What are some other things that you can now recognize maybe are small or little things, but they're having a big impact?
It's finding a community is helpful. The folks in our community, sometimes we have nothing in common at all, right? But ADHD is a pretty big commonality. So community is helpful just to feel like seen and heard. And psychologically, I do think we all want to belong to a tribe, right? I think that's important. Don't be afraid to like just go there. Like I know there's times where I'll hesitate. Oh, like this is pretty vulnerable. Like should I even share this with Ian? And you've been very generous and non-judgmental. Well, one, because you've gone through it yourself, so you can relate. And two, it's like something special about just having a safe space where you can just be vulnerable and just share from your heart. Like, hey, this is actually what I'm struggling with. And just having that it's priceless. It's hard to really quantify that. And I would say, don't be afraid to go there, right? Whether like in your case, like reading books, reaching out to mentors, like reaching out to people that have published books on this topic. Like you clearly went out of your way to, because it was probably so detrimental to your sanity and your career that you're like, all right, let me figure out what's going on. I think not everyone shares the same enthusiasm, or it's like scary to go there, right? Because like, what if you find out and you're like, maybe something is wrong with me? Or it's just that, oh, I'm gonna like avoid it. But by avoiding it, like eventually it's gonna catch up to me, right? So for me, I started reaching out to you because it was to the point where I was like, man, on paper, like I've hit all of my milestones. I have a bucket list of like 150 things and I checked off 100 of these things. Yeah, why do I still feel like why do I still feel broken? So for me, I think I reached the point of almost feeling like rock bottom. And then I mean, luckily you were there, right? God, connected you and Ian Koniak together. And then you spoke at our fireside chat. And I was like, holy crap, this guy like really gets me. And it's cost money, right? It was still an investment, so on paper, I had a lot of debt. I probably should be spending more on coaching, but I believed in myself and I thought that, okay, maybe there is a solution there. So I had to lead with curiosity.
And now you've cleared up most of that debt and you've dramatically increased your salary and things are going well. So that's awesome. All right. Well, let's wrap it up there. This has been awesome. Thank you for sharing. I think the more people hear these stories, because I know when I was going through stuff, most helpful thing was just watching like videos and podcasts of people and hearing their stories. And I always wanted to know like, well, what was that guy's story? What was that girl's story? How did she do it? Like, oh, I can't wait to see like what, and all that, little bits of information everywhere start to add up. And it's really helpful. So awesome. And I will say goodbye to all of you and we'll see you next time.